All right, we're here in San Francisco and we're back with another episode of Camera West TV. My name's Carlo, and today we're taking a look at a camera that technically doesn't exist. With me, I have the Leica M4-P Half Frame. For those of you who aren't familiar with half frame or have never heard of what half frame is, essentially it takes a 35mm frame and splits it in half, and you get the ratio of 18:24 instead of 36:24, which is typically going to be horizontal. So on most half frame cameras, if not all, they're all going to be portrait oriented because of splitting the frame. The way that I have the camera now, I'm going to get a portrait orientation, and then if I turn it this way is how I get landscape. It's a little counterintuitive, but the trade-off is you get double the amount of photos. So instead of around 35, 36 images, you get about 72, give or take. So today, I'm gonna load this up with Leica Monopan 50. This is Leica's brand new black and white film, and I'm excited to try it out. So this is gonna be a partial camera review slash film review. So let me know if you want to see a full review on Leica Monopan 50 down in the comments below. All the photos that are in this video will be found at the Tools of Time blog. Article will be in the link down below. And like and subscribe, it's free. So I'm excited to try out this Leica film. It's very rare that we get new film these days, so let's load the camera. Check this out. Half frame, that's crazy. It's usually a bigger cutout. You can see right there, it's gonna be 18:24, so that matches up with the orientation of the film. So I've mounted a 35mm Summilux, a spherical version 2 on here. The reason being is because I'm one, shooting a low ISO film, so I just want to get as much light into the camera as possible. And two, the half frame actually crops about 1.4 times into your image. So it effectively turns a 35mm frame into around a 49, almost 50mm frame. So going back to what I was saying about having a portrait oriented photo, the equivalent is going to be about a 50mm, and I'll have the corresponding conversions for all the other focal lengths. But essentially you still get your normal 28mm, 35mm, and 50mm frame lines. They're just adjusted for the crop. Since this camera doesn't have a built-in light meter, I actually have a light meter with me today so I can get pretty accurate readings. So let me just set this to ISO 50 and we can get started. Let's see what f8 30th, 250th. The fun thing about a half frame camera is since it splits the frame, you could actually have fun with the layouts depending on what part of the frame you're using. So you can get creative with the diptychs or the layout of certain photos, or just enjoy the single photo. All right, so f8, 250th. All right, we'll just line this up in the center just for comparison, and boom. All right, frame number 1, done. Let's see. Interesting. It's still like jarring to even like hold it up and see a vertical frame. So, all right, let's see if we can get this portrait of a bird. He's all confused. It's kind of nice not needing to like reorient the camera, but let's do a vertical or a horizontal. Wow, I'm already getting mixed up. It's so jarring. It's kind of funny though. But yeah, you can see right there, Leica M4-P half frame. It's kind of cool. Feels just like a Leica M, just half of one. All right, so essentially I just took 2 photos and hopefully they stack up to be one photo, just long or normal. So we'll see if it lines up in the way that I'm thinking. But I'll take one normal one as a control. This camera was never technically or officially produced by Leica. It was kind of made in the Canadian factory. So there's a lot of speculation around how the camera came to be. One of the biggest, most common ones that I came across was it was commissioned by a cruise line in order for them to take family portraits right before they board the vessel. And that's the best that I could find, but there's clearly maybe less than 10 in existence. They're ultra rare to find, let alone come by. It's a fully functioning camera and it feels just like a normal M body, but I'm just surprised at like how disorienting it is. Like, it feels like I'm picking up a rangefinder for the first time again. It's like exciting but terrifying at the same time. Every time I pull up the viewfinder to my eye, the frame is so much tighter. So that's like my first initial thoughts is maybe I want a wider lens, but for now, it feels a little disorienting. Fun fact, this is actually the second half-frame Leica body. The first one is a Leica 3C, so technically you have one Leica thread mount camera and you have one M camera. You get different form factors, different ergonomics, but both still have the frame. I will say, it is very easy to take a vertical frame. It's very hard to take a horizontal frame, mostly because I am not getting the width that I actually want from this lens. So it truly does feel like I'm shooting with a 50mm. So, off to a great start. So it's only been about a few hours and I'm still on the first roll of film at shot number 50, which is pretty good. By now, I probably would have shot about 2 rolls of film. So while I finish this roll of film, I'm going to hand things off to my friend Max so we can learn more about his experience using the Leica M4-P Half Frame.
Thank you, Carlo. My name is Max. I am a Bay Area software engineer working on AI, and I do a lot of photography, I guess, by night. I do a lot of street photography, and I did a little bit of studio work as well, and product photography. When Sean first showed me the half-frame M4-P, I never knew it existed. Immediately, it was interesting, and especially because I shot the Pentax half-frame camera, and seeing the results there, it became even more interesting. So recently, I spent some time with it. I quite enjoyed it. It certainly is very familiar because the form factor is pretty much like an M4 or an M6. The big thing is when you put it next to your eyes, the viewfinder is in the portrait style. So that's why they call it the Instagram Leica M4. But it's a camera that wasn't necessarily produced. So when Sean showed it to me, I shot with it for a little bit of time and I loved it. I wish Leica made it. Certainly it's here, but it's not a production camera at this point. But it's great. It works flawlessly. My experience actually is interesting because I bought the Pentax 17 half frame when it came out as a gift to my niece who loves it. And I shot it for maybe like 2 rolls. And what I realized is that while it's nice, it's small, the form factor, etc. is weird, but it doesn't have a lot of control. So it's pretty much a point and shoot film camera. But the results were interesting because the results were grainy for black and white, in color as well, and the lens is not that great. With the Pentax, when you shoot and it becomes a little bit more grainy, it's a certain character that is quite nice to see too. So the difference here is that you get everything that you love about Leica M cameras, and you can put all your lenses and you get half frame. In terms of resolution, I did not notice because I used the 35 APO mostly on this. It literally couldn't see a difference between the results that I could get with, full frame because the resolution is so good on that lens. I shot this for probably about a month now, and I shot a series of models with Mark De Paula in New York, and that was really good. And I shot street with it too. Probably the biggest issue is remembering that when you put it to your eyes, you're gonna have a vertical photo, which is very useful, especially for portraiture, etc. But you have to remember that, because if in your mind you're looking at the scene and you were thinking you're gonna take an horizontal frame, you have to remember to turn it. Now, the other thing also is you have to remember, because it's half frame, now you have 72 shots versus 36. And that can be a bit disconcerting in the sense that it takes a lot more time to finish a roll, but it also just means you have more photos, right? So, I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. It's hard to say. I know Sean gave me some ideas of what happened. I did a little bit of research, and maybe you also, Carlo, did some research. I think probably came because two reasons. So one is that I know that Leica Canada tended to do their own thing back in the days. So meaning like they would see a market and they would try to build something for that market. That's how a lot of the weird Elcan lenses, like the 60, 66 and so on, came about. And I think this probably came about the same way in the sense that they probably were competing with the markets at the time. Because, you know, film is expensive even now, and it was expensive then. So being able to shoot, you know, double on the same roll of film is quite useful for some situation. And Leica making literally the best lenses in the world means that you can put a very good lens on this and you don't see any difference, like I did with the 35 Apple. So I think that's probably how it came about. I don't know why it wasn't in production, but it's here. I would say if they made it, probably, I guess, since you were asking if there's anything I don't like, is the glasses in the viewfinder versus, let's say, an MP. Part of the reason to buy the MP, which I would highly recommend, is that the viewfinder is just perfect, right? When you put it on your eyes, it's super clear. Whereas with this one, you can see it's not that upgraded viewfinder. Otherwise, it's great. It doesn't have, obviously, it's an M4, so it doesn't have a light meter. You know, real photographer, you should learn how to not use a light meter or depend on it. And once you get used to that, it's actually very liberating. I think in today's economy where basically film is getting more and more expensive, like a good Portra 400 is like what, like almost 20 bucks now, and 800 is getting even more expensive. With a camera like this, you'd get double the amount of film. And because literally the lenses are pretty much all good, like 35 1.4, 50 1.4, etc., is fantastic, you'd get very good result, but double number of film. The one thing you have to do remember is that when you put like a 35, it becomes a 50 equivalent, etc. So you do get that aspect. But Leica makes 28 and 24, and so you could basically get the focal length that you need.
And I think to wrap it up, do you have any more final thoughts about the camera?
Leica, my friend Stefan Daniels, if you're listening, release this again. I'm sure you'll have a market for it. I certainly would buy one new. And so, anyways, but thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully you all can tell us what you think of this camera. So we're gonna have an article on the Tools of Times blog, so the Camera West blog. The photographs that you will see will be also not only on that article, but also if you want to see our socials. For me, it's at Maximilien.bnw for black and white, or .color. And Maximilien is Maximilien. Thank you, Carlo.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts and opinions, Max. And I have to say, I agree with a lot of them. First and foremost, I do agree with the fact that the form factor of the half frame, at least for the Leica M, is a little disorienting. If you've been using the Leica M system for a pretty long time, it can be a bit confusing to hold the viewfinder up to your eye and see you have a lot less space on your edges. So having to remember to turn the camera portrait oriented in order to take a landscape can get a little confusing. So after some time, I started to get used to the orientation and the field of view of the lens. All I had to remember was if my subject was directly in front of me or in plain view of the lens, generally it would be within frame. Oftentimes I would have to remember I would need to be a little further back, but that's just kind of the name of the game. Along with the unfamiliar crop, another issue that I ran into was actually not the camera. It was using an unfamiliar film stock. So in hindsight, it was probably not the greatest to use a film that I was unfamiliar with, let alone one that is pretty slow. As I continued to shoot through the roll, I started to feel a little bit more comfortable focusing on what was in front of the lens rather than how it will appear across the entire frame. So removing the idea of trying to make intentional diptychs really helped, and it created a lot of surprises for me, to which I found even more enjoyable because you just never know how it's gonna line up. Even if you try to make intentional diptychs, I think the serendipitous surprise of having an unintentional pairing match was one of the most rewarding feelings, because it just felt so natural, so free, so fun, and it was a cool way to experience shooting half frame as well as 35mm photography. With that being said, I ended up shooting a roll of color, which was Portrait 400, a film stock that I'm quite familiar with. Having that confidence of being able to freely think about shooting instead of exposing helped me get out of that comfort zone, and I started to really dig into more of the half frame and just shooting more freely, shooting more wildly, not really thinking about what photo will come up next or before, and not intentionally trying to make a diptych. And I also agree with Max that portraits are pretty strong for this camera. Having the vertical alignment for the rangefinder was really fun for portraits. It made it super easy. All I had to do was flip the camera up, I was in line, and all I had to do was fire the photo, and boom, you could just have a row of portraits. Some of them can line up with other things that you photographed within the roll. It's just fun to get creative, and you can have a little bit more playfulness within your photography. This is my first time really using a half frame camera, and I will say, just like Max, I'm thoroughly impressed. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that I stopped thinking about shooting as a diptych when using this camera, and I started to think about what the contact sheet from this film would look like, and that got me thinking, what if I just made one big photo using a contact sheet? The idea of it was simple, or at least I thought it was simple. On a normal contact sheet, or if you cut your negatives a certain way, you can get 6 frames across and 6 frames down, or you can do 5 frames across, 7 frames down. So I settled on 6 by 6, which theoretically would be 12 across, 6 down. So in my head, that was pretty simple. Before I loaded one last roll of film into this camera, I decided to practice with a digital half frame using the Fuji X-Half. Now I went to a landscape that I thought would be wide enough for me to section out each photo, and I knew that camera would produce a digital contact sheet if I shoot it in the film simulation mode. To my surprise, the lens ended up being wide for what I intentionally wanted to do. And on top of that, the way that it made the digital contact sheet, it went from bottom right going up left. Versus on a film contact sheet, you have your first photo being top left and then going down to the right. So it was a lot of trial and error trying to get the alignment of the photos correct, but the location that I chose and the focal length on the lens were just too wide, and it made the landscape kind of bow out almost like a fisheye. I had to go back to the drawing board and rethink how I could make this possible. That got me thinking, what if I shot it like it was a billboard, where you shoot individual pieces of a larger image, so then you can ultimately make the greater image? The only thing that I could think of was using the longest telephoto lens that I could put on here, and the longest telephoto frame lens on this camera is a 90mm. So I took this camera, a collapsible 90 f4, and a roll of Tri-X, and went to the top of Twin Peaks to successfully make one contact sheet photo. Or so I thought. I was off by 1 frame, but for the most part, I think I did a pretty good job. I think I accomplished the goal that I wanted to do, and it was just something that I would have never thought of photographically, let alone use an M camera for that. And I thought it was really cool that this camera brought out a lot of experimentation and the willingness to create something different than what an M camera traditionally is used for, which is documentary work, photojournalism, everyday life. This begs the question, what is this camera really good for? Well, from my experience using this camera, I thought it was really cool that you are able to extend the amount of frames that you have in a roll of film. The fact that you get 72 photos instead of the normal 36 exposures, I think is a great option if you're trying to conserve your film, or if you're on location and you have a limited amount of film. But at the same time, I find that as a drawback because it is daunting to shoot the same roll of film for that long. I was watching the frame counter get up to 30 and thinking, cool, I'm almost done, and then realizing, oh, I'm barely halfway there. Another benefit is the way this camera takes you out of your habits. I will say, when you do start using an M camera, you develop a lot of habits that help you use the camera much faster, much quicker, a little bit more intuitive, or as some might say, extension of your eye or body. Now, this took everything and made it felt like I had two left feet. It felt like I was relearning to use a rangefinder, but in a way that felt familiar yet bizarro in a sense. And I kind of liked that. It made it feel fun, it made it feel exciting and refreshing. Another concern would be the loss of quality of your photo because it is a half-frame camera. Well, I have to agree with what Max said. I virtually saw no loss in quality. If anything, the Leica lenses maintained the quality. And I think that's something where, like Max said about the Pentax 17, it's just a different character for the lens. But the fact that you can put sharper lenses or more unique characteristic lenses on this camera and still yield a similar result to a full frame of 35mm, I think is great. I think in that sense, it turns it into more of a benefit because not only are you getting double the amount of photos, you're not really losing resolution at the end of the day. Now I just want to address the elephant in the room, and that this is a rare and expensive camera. It is very hard to find any information about it, or at least confirmed information about it, let alone find one in person or even online. With that being said, I think the alternatives that are available today are great options if you want to shoot with a half-frame camera. But as Max said, Leica, if you're listening, please bring this back into production. I think truly there would be a market for this type of M camera, and who knows, it could be a Leica M half frame. Or better yet, a Leica M4-P half frame. M6 half frame? I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Would you want to see a new Leica half frame film camera, or see them integrate it as a crop ratio for the digital cameras? And also, let me know what you think is your best guess as how this camera came to be. I would love to hear your thoughts and see if we can uncover more information about this camera. I know that it was not as informational as it could be, as there is limited information about this camera. And I thought it would be fun to make this little collaborative video to help uncover and shed light on a camera that we really don't know much about. And that's gonna do it for today's video. I wanna quickly thank our friend Max, as well as our friends over at Underdogfilm Lab for developing and scanning the photos for today's video. And also, don't forget to check out our Tools of Time blog article. It's gonna be down below, and there you can find all the photos that were in the video, Max's photos, the contact sheet photo. You can view everything at your own pace and check out other past articles about gear we featured in the past. And don't forget to check out leicastoresanfrancisco.com and camerawest.com for all your new and pre-owned needs. At the time of filming this, Camera West Soho is now open. Go check it out. And coming in 2026, Camera West San Francisco. So now we're gonna be neighbors. How exciting. And I just want to thank all of you for watching and sticking around. We can't thank you enough as we celebrate 25 years of Camera West, and last year it was 10 years of Leica Store San Francisco. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you again for watching. My name's Carlo. See you next time.